So it's not far away now. Let's have a sesh on AQA Paper 1 2022 GCSE Business. So in this video, I want to go through 8 big topics, and that's based on the advanced information. The link for that is below in the description box. Please make sure you know your advanced information. Let's go. Topic number 1, partnerships versus private limited companies. It looks like this is going to be important this year, so let's go through it. Partnerships, the key features. 2 or more people own and run the business. It's unincorporated, so unlimited liability. Unincorporated, unlimited liability. And all the partners agree to a deed of partnership which legally sets out how the profits and control will be distributed. Now, private limited companies, the key features, owned by its shareholders. Remember, private limited company has shareholders and managed by a director. Shareholders are not allowed to sell shares to the public via the stock exchange. Now, that would be the case if it's a public limited company. So sticking with private limited companies, well, shareholders' losses are of course limited to how much they invested in the business, and you would know that as limited liability. Now this question, they may take it a bit further, so let's go through the benefits on each side. So partnerships, the benefits there. Different partners have different skill sets. You might be able to share the workload, share the risk, of course, the financial risks. Financial records will not be published publicly because it's a partnership and it's an unincorporated organisation. Now, looking at private limited company, the benefits there. Well, firstly, limited liability, of course. So if it mentions in the case study about personal assets, well, they will be protected through limited liability. Secondly, extra finance. Extra finance because of the sale of shares, because you're a company now, so you can sell shares. You could not sell shares if you were in a partnership. And this might help finance the business. Maybe the business wants to expand. Maybe the business needs to invest in something and they otherwise can't do it and meet their business objectives without having that extra finance. So maybe that's crucial to the organisation to become a private limited company. And if we're comparing private limited companies to public limited companies, remember, shares are not sold on the stock exchange, and that might be beneficial as they're able to control who the shareholders are, and that will be particularly important for a family business. So partnerships versus private limited companies, that's one to watch out for. Let's move on to number 2. So number 2 is diseconomies of scale. So diseconomies of scale may occur once economies of scale have been fully exhausted. So you've exhausted your purchasing economies of scale or your technical economies of scale, and now you're in that bad phase where you're getting diseconomies of scale. It's a bad thing. This means as the business grows, output increases, leading to an increase, bad thing, increase in average unit cost. And if your average unit costs are increasing, it might mean that your prices need to increase. If your prices need to increase, well, that might make you less competitive. So diseconomies of scale will occur due to employee coordination, employee motivation, employee communication. And it's the fact that there's a lack of coordination, there's a lack of motivation, there's a lack of communication because the output of the business has grown, the business got too big, too clunky, and it's led to the average unit cost increasing. Now please remember, this could be used as a disadvantage or a limitation or a con of an expanding business. Maybe there's a longer question on expanding businesses, and that if they were to expand, maybe they get diseconomies of scale, and that's potentially a problem or make them less competitive in the market that they are in. So that's number 2, diseconomies of scale. Make sure you revise it. Let's go on to number 3. So number 3, impact of interest rate changes. Now remember, with interest rate changes, there's 2 impacts. There's the impact on producers and the impact on consumers. Now we're going to deal firstly with producers. Remember, producers, if you're confused by that word, that's just simply the business, the impact on the firm, the impact on the business, the organisation. So if interest rates increase, I'm sticking with increase here because that's contemporary, that's what's been happening in the UK over the last year. So if interest rates increase, it will make it more expensive to borrow money. This will greatly impact those businesses that rely on overdrafts and loans for finance. Remember, they're 2 sources of finance. This will lead to higher costs. So if interest rates go up, it means higher costs for businesses with overdrafts and loans. and therefore lower profits. So it's a bad thing. Additionally, higher interest rates will make investments in capital, in machinery, more expensive if a loan is being used, and this may reduce businesses' investment levels. Maybe they look and think it's not worth investing right now in machinery, in types of capital. Remember, capital is one of those factors of production, simply because interest rates are increasing. Now let's look at the impact on consumers. So the impact on consumers. If interest rates increase, it makes it more expensive to borrow money, but more rewarding to save money. And this will encourage saving and discourage borrowing. As a result, consumers will have less disposable income, so demand for goods and services will likely fall. So consumers, people that buy things, if interest rates are increasing, well, that might put them off borrowing money. It might make them think, well, may as well save more money now. The interest rate is better. And if you're saving money, you can't be spending money. And as a consequence, it might mean demand for goods and services will fall and the profits for those businesses will fall. So that's number 3, impact of interest rate changes. Don't forget to talk about the impacts on producers and the impacts on consumers if you are required to do so. Number 4, benefits of good customer service. So with benefits of good customer service, if it's a longer question, then just make sure you're thinking about those chains of analysis here. So let's go through some ones that might be useful. Providing good customer service is likely to increase customer satisfaction. As they have a positive experience, they become loyal to the business in the future. Increased loyalty may lead to customers spending more on the website or the outlet in the future, and that's known as increased spend per head. And this will lead to increased profitability. So that's why good customer service is important to a business, something to watch out for. Well, that's number 4. Let's go on to number 5. Number 5, stock management. This is a big one. I can smell it. It's important. So just in time, the definition. A stock management approach aimed at ensuring the amount of products a business intends to produce in a given time period is matched with the amount of raw materials or components they order from the suppliers. So just in time is one of those stock management approaches, and the other one is just in case. And the definition for that, a stock management approach aimed at ensuring the business holds a very large amount of stock. This means they are less likely to run out of stock. Now, if you stick to the end of the video, I've got a special treat for you on this question and something that will help you to prepare for the forthcoming exams. But firstly, let's go through the benefits of just in time and just in case. So the benefits of just in time: hold limited stock, so lower storage costs. That's a good thing. The next thing is because you're just holding a small amount of stock, just in time, it's just arriving in time, products won't perish or they won't become obsolete. So there's no waste there. And remember, just in time is a type of lean production, and it's got to focus on efficiency. And efficiency, of course, is great for a business. On the other side, just in case. The benefits of just in case. Well, you're buying very large amounts of stock in one go, so you are likely to get purchasing economies of scale. And that will mean lower average cost per units, which is a great thing for a business. Additionally, if you're holding large amounts of stock, then you'll be able to meet sudden demand changes or fluctuating demand. So if there's huge orders that come for you, you're holding loads of stock, you can fulfill those orders. There's no reputational issues off of that. Also, you can meet sudden supply changes. Maybe suddenly you can't order those supplies in as you previously could, but you hold loads of stock, so you'll be able to get through that period. And we've seen that with Brexit, coronavirus, boat stuck in the Suez Canal. The third point with just in case, less reliance on suppliers, so there's less risk there. So that's why it's a good thing in comparison to just in time. As I said, stick to the end of this video. There's something special, a model answer on just in time and just in case. Let's move on to the next one. The importance of motivation. So why is it important to motivate your workforce? Could be a longer question, could be a cheeky 6 marker, need those chains of analysis. So improve productivity, lower absenteeism, improve staff retention. That means your staff stay with you longer. If they stay with you longer, they grow with your business, they become more experienced with your business, And that's a good thing because it might lead to improved quality of your products or your services or your customer service. And additionally, if they're staying with you longer because of improved staff retention, that will mean reduced recruitment costs because you don't need to replace staff that aren't leaving. That's number 6. Let's go on to number 7. Motivation methods. So motivation methods, remember, it's going to be financial methods or non-financial methods. Let's go through financial methods. Increase salary, increase wages, offer commission on sales, profit sharing with employees. And on the non-financial side, remember, you can adjust those management styles. You could be more authoritarian, more democratic, or you could offer training, extra responsibility, or fringe benefits, which is a non-financial method of motivation for AQA. Let's go on to number 8. Types of training. That's a big one. I can smell it. So off-the-job training. Off-the-job training is training that occurs outside the workplace, but during paid hours. An example would be college courses or online training. Meanwhile, on-the-job training is training that occurs inside the workplace. This is the most common form of training. It is usually more practical. For example, demonstrating to an employee how to do a particular task. Know the difference between off and on the job training. Let's go through the benefits in case it comes up as a longer, I can smell it. So continuing with the benefits of off-the-job training and on-the-job training. So off-the-job training means workers are removed from the usual work environment so they can be focused on the training. They will not be distracted by other work commitments. As a result, they are more likely to learn the skill well, and maybe that skill is vital to the business succeeding in the future. Additionally, it is likely they will be trained by an expert who has knowledge, expertise, and is practiced in the content of the training. And furthermore, off-the-job training will give the employee time and space to fully grasp the skill they're trying to learn, and there's no pressure to be productive in that moment. As opposed to on-the-job training, and the benefits of on-the-job training is, number 1, it's cheaper. It's cheaper because you don't need to pay for that off-the-job training. You don't need to pay for that expert. Maybe that expert's miles away and you need to pay travel for your employees, hotels for your employees. You don't have to pay for any of that with on-the-job training. So it's much likely to be cheaper because the employee can learn from other employees, essentially mentors, and moreover, it will be hands-on, kinesthetic, practical training relevant to the employee, to their precise job. This will mean even in the short term, so even initially as they're learning that skill, they're likely to still be productive. They're going to produce some output, albeit slowly, they're producing something. And with supervision from mentors, in the long term, they could become very productive at that skill. And furthermore, they're building relationships. They're working closely with other employees, helping to build relationships, which will aid communication in the future and perhaps increase productivity. So that's the 8 big topics. So the first thing to think about is smelling those longer questions out. Let's smell them out. Well, looking through that advanced information, I'm sure you've looked at it. There seems to be classic questions that they appear to be very likely to feature. Of course, I don't know what's going to be in the exams. I'm not writing the exams. I don't know, but these are my thoughts based on my experience of teaching. Business ownerships is an absolute classic for a GCSE paper. And given they've said partnerships and private limited companies will feature, I think it's pretty pragmatic for you to be revising partnerships, pros and cons, private limited companies, pros and cons. And for that, there's been a question a few years ago, 2019, on that, and I'm going to show a model answer of that later in this video. The next thing to look at is just in case versus just in time. Again, that's a classic. It's a classic, and it feels like that could well feature this year in those longer questions. And once again, I've got a model answer for that because it featured a few years ago. Of course, they're going to change the case study, change the people, but it's important to just have practiced those 2 types of questions. So there's a model answer coming on that at the end of this video. The third thing is on-the-job training versus off-the-job training could well feature as a 9, certainly suits a 9 marker. And maybe a curveball, it could be something on expansion methods, maybe a business. It could be should they grow or should they not grow. There could be a 9 marker there. Additionally, if we're thinking about that 12 marker, if I'm going to have a punt, and remember it's only a punt, got to revise everything. Lean production, TQM, they feel important, and also customer service certainly feels important. So that's smelling those longer questions out. Of course, you've got to revise everything, particularly those things that are on that advanced information. Now let's move on to those model answers as promised. So 2019, paper 2, section B, question 2, paper 3, business ownership model answer. So here's my model answer for that question. I advise that Jade changes the legal structure of STS to a private limited company. This will mean STS becomes an incorporated business, therefore as a shareholder she would benefit from limited liability. This is important to Jade because she owns a house and the existing business loan is secured against it. Limited liability will ensure STS and Jade's personal assets, for example their house, are classed as separate legal entities. As a consequence, if the business faced financial difficulties and her debt levels became unmanageable, she will still have protection of her house. Furthermore, the limited liability will extend to the new shareholders that Jade aims to attract to STS to enable her to raise finance. This is especially important given the existing levels of debt and the recent bank announcement that the cost of servicing these debts will increase. However, the extent of the debt issue is not clear from the information provided. It depends on the size of her initial bank loan and how much of the loan she has left to repay. If it is a smaller amount, the interest rate increase may have a negligible impact on finances. So that's the first of the 3 paragraphs. The second one is coming up. On the other hand, becoming a private limited company will mean Jade will be selling a share of the company. As a consequence, she will lose some control of the decision-making process. And this is poignant because Jade is determined to make key business decisions herself, such as the prospective expansion. As a private limited company, Jade may need to satisfy shareholders' aims and objectives, which could be different to hers. However, it depends on the share of STS Jade needs to sell in order to get the finance to resolve the potential debt issue, as well as fund the future expansion of STS. If she only needs to give up a small percentage of the business, it is very likely she will still retain majority control. Moving on to the third and final paragraph. In conclusion, Jade clearly has plans for STS to expand, but she needs investment and therefore she needs to become a private limited company. The finance she receives from shareholders will not need to be repaid, so will allow her to expand the business quicker than as a sole trader saddled by debt. Although she will have to now pay the shareholders dividends, it is extremely likely the expansion will result in higher overall profits in the long term. Moreover, this is Jade's first business venture, providing her with majority control, but with ongoing business support from shareholders who may have the business experience, could be an added bonus to enable STS to expand swiftly and profitably. So that's the business ownership question. It's well worth looking back at that. I showed the details to how you can find the question, the case study for that earlier on. And now let's move on to the second and the final model answer to help you get ready and absolutely smash those exams. So this is 2019, paper 1, section B, question 2, part 7, and it's the just-in-time model answer. Again, feeling it, smelling it. Let's get to the model answer. Paragraph 1. I recommend that fleet bikes should change to just-in-time stock control because it will allow costs to be lowered. They should use just-in-time because it means that less space in the warehouse will be taken up with materials. Just-in-time management means that the business will have no or very little excess stock. As a result, they would not need the storage space. At the moment, fleet bikes stock is taking up all the space in the warehouse and they need to take out a loan in order to extend the factory, as this space would not be used. Fleet bikes would not need to get a loan or expand, so can keep its costs low. This would result in lower costs, allowing for higher profit and profit margin if they keep their prices the same. This may have an effect on the logistics and procurement teams, as they would need to make sure that the supply chain is efficient. However, just-in-time would depend on the supplier's reliability. Moving on to the second of the 3 paragraphs. However, if they carried on with just-in-case stock management, fleet bikes would be able to receive purchasing economies of scale from the larger orders. By using just-in-case, the business will have greater volume orders and so would be more likely to be able to negotiate with the supplier to get economies of scale, so cheaper unit costs on the orders. This can be seen as they already have 10% discount on their orders and could risk losing this with just-in-time. As a result, the variable costs would be kept lower and so profit will increase. However, it depends on the space they have for more stock. The final paragraph. Overall, I think that fleet bikes should use just-in-time because it would lower the business fixed costs. They would no longer need to pay rent for storage of the excess stock. However, they would not be able to respond to sudden fluctuations in orders and so would risk losing potential customers. Nevertheless, in the long term, just-in-time would keep costs low as a result of lower fixed costs. This could mean their break-even output would fall, leading to a higher margin of safety. So I hope that helps. And the last thing I need to say to all of you is thank you. Thank you for your support this year. Thank you for your comments. And I hope you go out there, paper 1, and do an absolute demolition job on that exam. Best of luck. Thank you very much.